I think there are some important things to focus on as we move into the 2020 election that stem from what we were worried about having already taken place in 2016. We think that there were major Russian intervention initiatives, Russians call them Russian active measures, that were engaged in 2016, and we worry that they're continuing to do that and intending to do even more if they can in 2020. I think the two biggest points to emphasize that do not get emphasized in the United States all that much is the precursor events that, at least in the Russian perspective, happened towards the Russian Federation that we just don't talk about. We talk about 2016 as if it was a Russian action, but to the Russian perception, it was complete. Well, to be honest, they still deny that they did anything. So technically, they say they engaged in no such activity at all. The data shows us otherwise. But what's more important to me is to look backwards almost a decade, and you can see a progressive advance of Hillary Clinton's statements and actions in terms of being a state senator from New York, the Secretary of State under President Obama, and then as the leading contender for the Democratic nomination for president, where she absolutely took initiatives that the Russians regarded as being very anti-Russian, even to a point where in 2013, Putin at a major press conference, global press conference, said directly into the microphone, well, this is what America does. America, every once in a while, likes to puff up its chest and act like it owns the planet, and it wants everyone to know that it owns the planet. It interferes in our affairs just so that we understand who has what role and when. So I always imagine that Putin looks in the aftermath of 2016, and we ask ourselves, why did Russia do this? Why did they initiate these actions? And I swear he must be just befuddled, because he's like, I told you directly into a microphone why I felt how I felt, why I thought you did stuff to us first. So it's not a Russian action, it's a Russian reaction if he was ever able to tell the truth into the microphone. Technically, they still deny any wrongdoing whatsoever. But if we ignore that, I think they have justified foreign policy grounds for why they did what they did and why they would prefer Trump over Hillary in terms of being president. The second thing is the data itself. We emphasize that this data was always about Trump, trying to help Trump, help his campaign, hurt Hillary's campaign. But when you actually look at the technological data, what we see is a very even distribution between left-leaning trolls and right-leaning trolls. And we see a huge spike of activity after Trump was elected in terms of right-leaning trolls. And people often forget, in disinformation, there's a reverse effect involved. So if I'm right-leaning, I take, like say Black Lives Matter or something, I take memes that are meant to enrage the left if I'm a right-leaning troll. So when we see a huge spike of right-leaning troll activity from Russia in the 6 months after Trump has been elected, we can't then say that they're just meant to elect Trump, that Russia had a bigger picture involved that was meant to just sort of cause chaos, cause discord, cause societal dissension. And those 2 points are really important, and we just don't talk about them enough. There's massive amounts of data that exist, but some of the more popular graphs, I guess we use more often, come from places like NBC News and Reuters and various think tanks that are in and around the Council on Foreign Relations in New York City, the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C. They all firmly establish a odd amount of internet activity involving meme production and social media intervention coming from sources that are inside of Russia to such an intensity and such a degree that we can't just call it coincidental activity where just suddenly there was a renewed or a buoyed interest in the 2016 American presidential election from Russian political followers. It just doesn't make sense to believe that. We would be naive to think that's the case. The idea of post-truth, first, it got coined by the Oxford Dictionaries in 2016 as the word of the year. That was basically on the heels of the 1-2 gut punch of Brexit, and then immediately after Brexit was Donald Trump was elected president. And because of those two things together, the Oxford Dictionaries named post-truth its word of the year. But the reality of this is in a nutshell, post-truth is saying, where do I get my facts from? What do I choose to believe in? I don't want to believe in objective analysis anymore. I just want to have emotional appeals to what I already believe ahead of time. So I look for people who think like I do, believe like I do. I don't want to engage debate. I don't want intensive discussions. And I don't need facts. Don't give me facts. I want something that runs in line with my emotions. That's what post-truth technically is called. Without that phenomenon, which seems to be running wild all over America and has absolutely nothing to do with Russians, the disinformation campaigns of the Russians wouldn't have worked. Like these memes, if you look at the actual memes, if you ever break them down, you see sort of left-leaning and right-leaning, but they're absolutely farcical in what they're trying to talk about. Like Hillary Clinton killed 48 people and has never been arrested. Donald Trump is a puppet and in the back pocket of Putin. No evidence, no direct evidence, no smoking gun to prove that. It's meant to inflame and incite each side, which already believes those things anyway, on an emotional level, a deep emotional level, not any kind of factual, objective, analytical level. If that post-truth phenomenon didn't exist, disinformation doesn't really work. And so what really, really bothers me more than anything else is when you combine those two together, if we should be disturbed about anything, it's not about whatever Russia tried or didn't try to do technologically. I'm more concerned about the fact that Russia was able to look at American society and figure something out about us that we didn't know about ourselves. They understood us better than we understood ourselves, and they were able to take advantage of it. That's the most disturbing thing that as academics we tend to not talk about. I think it's one of the most principled and almost sacred missions we have at the university is to reclaim this territory that was once uniquely ours. Analytical thinking, critical reasoning, discernment, vetting our sources, accepting new information, trying to learn new things and engage new people that think differently from us, not instantly turning them into enemies. That used to be the bedrock of what our university was built upon, what every university was built upon. We still have that here. That's what's so important to me, being here at the university and what we're trying to do. But somewhere along the way, I think in American education in general, the words became not principled ideas, but more like buzzwords. And they didn't have as much value as they used to have. And maybe worse, in post-truth phenomenon society of America, they've become weapons used against us. You're an elite intellectual, so you're a snob, so I dismiss you, so I won't allow you to participate in my conversation. You don't have access or entry here. That regresses all of us, not just one group. It regresses all of our society. So here at the university, our sacred mission is claiming all of that back for us and for our students, and as a consequence, for all of America.